This is a BC Eagle Finance video. Brigham and Houston Chapter 4, Financial Statement Analysis, Table 4.2, Debt Management Ratios for the Allied Food Products Company. The Brigham and Houston text describes two financial ratios for debt management. Total debt to total capital ratio, which measures debt capacity, the ability of the business to take on more debt in the future, and 2, times interest earned, the ability of the company to pay current interest payments from operating income. Let's look at the total debt to capital ratio. It is calculated by taking the total debt, interest-bearing debt, for the numerator and dividing it by total capitalization, or total capital, in the denominator. Total capital is the total source of financing that the business has used and consists of total debt plus total equity. Let's examine the numerator. Total debt represents total interest-bearing debt only. So, examining the financial statements, locate the balance sheet and examine the current liability. You can see accounts payable, accruals, and notes payable. Notes payable represents debt that pays interest. Accounts payable and accruals do not pay interest and will be excluded from the numerator of the total debt ratio. So, notes payable of $110 million plus long-term bonds and other long-term interest-paying debt, $750 million, will appear in the denominator. $110 million short-term interest-paying debt plus $750 million long-term interest-paying debt gives $860 million total debt for the numerator of the debt to capital ratio. The denominator of this ratio will be the total of the debt, we already calculated that at $860 million, plus the total of the common equity. $940 million plus $860 million produces the $1.8 billion of total capital for the denominator. Doing the math for this ratio, $860 million divided by $1.8 million, produces a ratio of 47.8%. Another way to interpret this ratio is to say that there would be 47.8 cents of debt for every $1 of total capitalization or total financing that the business has. Comparing the 47.8 cents of debt for every dollar of financing for the Allied Food Products to its industry, 36.4 cents in debt for every dollar of capitalization, indicates that the Allied Food Products Company uses more debt than its competitors. It is a higher leveraged company. This means that Allied Food Products in the future will have a more difficult time finding additional financing if it needs it. Usually when a business has a ratio that goes above 50-50, lenders take a critical eye at the company's ability to pay off that debt and become more resistant to lending as freely as they did before. Let's examine the times interest earned ratio. The numerator of the times interest earned ratio is earnings before interest and taxes, or EBIT, from the income statement divided by the interest charges. To find the values for this ratio, we must go to the income statement for any corporation. The operating income, or EBIT, for Allied Food Products is $283.8 million. That becomes the numerator, and the denominator becomes the $88 million of interest expense. Dividing the $88 million of interest expense into the $283.8 million of EBIT, earnings before interest and taxes, produces a ratio of 3.2 times. That means that there is 3.2 times as much EBIT than there is interest expense. In other words, there would be $3.20 of EBIT to pay for every $1 of interest that the company has to pay. Comparing the $3.20 of EBIT for the Allied Food Products Company to its industry competitors, the industry has EBIT of $6 for every $1 of interest expense. So industry competitors will have an easier time meeting the interest payments than does the Allied Food Products Company. As a very general rule of thumb, it's nice to see an times interest earned ratio of at least 6 times, $6 of EBIT for every $1 of interest. That concludes the review of the debt management ratios for the Allied Food Products Company. Thank you for listening.